But welcome everyone to the Saugeen Shores Committee of Adjustment for Monday, May the 16th, 2022 at 5 p.m. and I call this meeting to order. Our second item on our agenda is any acknowledgement of any pecuniary interest. I remind members that you can either make your declaration now or at any time that it appears on the agenda. Our next item is adoption of minutes. Our last meeting was held on April the 19th, 2022. May I have a motion to carry the minutes? Moved by Deputy Mayor Matheson, seconded by the Vice Deputy Mayor. Any discussion about the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor. I declare the motion carried. There doesn't appear to be any additional business on item number 4, so we shall move on to item number 5, which is the public hearings. And our first application is number 5.1. This is a minor variance application, A-2022-008, Burcom Construction Limited, with the municipal address of 579 Hilker Street in the former town of Port Elgin. First, we will receive a report from the planning staff. Then committee members will have an opportunity to ask questions, and I will ask them to reserve their comments on the application until we have heard from the public. Then we will hear from any members of the public. Members of the public are advised that the ability to appeal the decision on this application may be limited if you have not provided comments on the application before the decision is made. After we have heard from the public, the committee will discuss and consider a recommendation on this application. I now ask the planner, Ms. Mugabe, to present the application.
Yes, thank you, Chair O'Connor. To just take a few seconds to load up the presentation. Yes, good evening, committee. This application is for 579 Hilker Street. This is primarily a low density residential neighborhood. The property abuts a municipal road allowance or right of way on the north side. The road allowance runs east-west and is located for the most part between existing developments, which front onto Gustavus Street and also onto Emma Street. The residential uses in the immediate surroundings back off onto the road allowance, and most of the accessory buildings and structures in the backyards are directly adjacent to the road allowance. So for the benefit of anyone who did not have an opportunity to visit the site, this is a photo of the site. It's presently vacant. The previous dwelling that was on this site was demolished just last year. I included this additional photo just to zero in on the right of way or the road allowance, which is the subject that we're going to be talking about tonight. It's basically just a dirt path at the moment. In terms of the site context, this is primarily a low density residential neighborhood. Servicing is by way of municipal water and sewer, and Hilker Street is a year-round municipal road. The purpose of this application is to reduce from 4.5 meters to 1.5 meters the exterior side yard setback to the road allowance, which is immediately north of the proposed unit number 1. Approval of this application will facilitate the construction of a semi-detached dwelling. In terms of additional information from a land use perspective, this site is designated primary urban communities in the Bruce County official plan. The designation is residential in the Saugeen Shores official plan, and the zoning is residential second density, R2. We've circulated the application to the departments and agencies. There are no adverse comments. The town staff have indicated that should the applicant wish to sever the property in the future, that new servicing connections will be required for any new lot that will be created. I just want to confirm that at this moment, there is no application for a severance. The Risk Management Office has commented that the property is not located within a vulnerable source protection area. So the policies do not apply for source water protection. Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority have indicated there are no natural heritage features on this site. We have not received any comments from members of the public. I'll now speak to the 4 tests of the minor variance. The proposed use is a permitted use under both the county official plan policy and also the local official plan policy. This application maintains the intent and purpose of the official plans. In regards to the zoning bylaw, the proposal complies with the zoning bylaw, save and except for unit number 1, which will be situated too close to the road allowance. The relief requested is to reduce the exterior side yard setback from 4.5 meters to 1.5 meters. The proposed development will meet the site visibility triangle requirement, which will ensure safety for motorists approaching Hilker Street from the road allowance. And should improvement be made to the road in the future, in my opinion, there'll be little or no impact. That road will not serve to provide access to existing developments as they front onto Gustavus and Emma Streets. And those are the streets that will continue to provide access to those developments. The owner has the option of erecting a fence along the exterior lot line to buffer against street activities and for privacy. This site can reasonably accommodate a semi-detached dwelling. And I think that there must be some flexibility to the standard to facilitate redevelopment at a greater density than the previous single detached dwelling as permitted by the R2 zone. It is my opinion that this variance maintains the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. With respect to test number 3, the proposed development will contribute to the overall public interest by securing 2 additional dwellings in this neighborhood. There is also the possibility of home ownership. I think the proposal is desirable and represents appropriate development for the use of the land. In regards to the last of the tests, is the variance minor in nature and what's the impact to surrounding property owners, to the environment, and to municipal functions. Permitting the variance will not have a significant impact in the near term, as the road allowance is currently just a dirt path, likely not used for vehicular traffic. And in the event the road gets constructed in the future, it will still be a back alley road with no developments fronting onto it. So it will not be a well-traveled road. There will be no significant impact from unit number 1 because it will not obstruct sight lines for motorists approaching Hilker Street from the road allowance. In terms of impact to the character of the area, this is a redevelopment proposal. Along both sides of the road allowance are all kinds of existing buildings and structures, and some of which likely located just as close to the exterior side yard as the proposed dwelling will be. In terms of municipal services, as indicated by town staff, should the applicant wish to sever the units for each unit to be on its own lot of record, the new servicing connections will be required for the newly created lot. These adequate municipal services available to service the proposed semi-detached dwelling. There are no environmental features that would be impacted by the proposal. It is my opinion that this proposal meets all 4 tests of a minor variance. As a summary, this application is seeking to reduce from 4.5 meters to 1.5 meters the exterior yard setback to the road allowance. This would facilitate redevelopment in the form of a semi-detached dwelling. This proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement. It upholds the objectives of the official plans, and it generally meets the intent and purposes of the zoning bylaw. This proposal satisfies the 4 tests of a minor variance. Planning staff are recommending approval of this application, subject to the conditions on the decision sheet. That concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to take questions if there are any.
Thank you, Ms. Mugabe. Are there any questions for the planner from the members of the committee? Seeing none, we'll now hear from the members of the public. Is the applicant present?
Yes, I'm here. It's Brian Burke.
Good afternoon, Mr. Burton. Do you wish to address the committees?
Sure. First of all, I want to thank Barbara for her support and her hard work on this application, and I want to thank the committee for tabling this tonight. As Barbara mentioned, we're looking for relief on the I'll call it the Mount Lane side of the alleyway side of from 4.5 to 1.5 to build a semi-detached dwelling of equal size. Each unit will be approximately 13 to 1,600 square feet. Now, back in 2018, April of 2018, we applied for the same minor variance under A 181846. It's basically the same piece of property, 553 Hilker is where it is, just down the street from this one. The only difference is that it's basically just opposite hand to this one. So it's got the milk lane and everything else. So it's got a pair of semis on it at 1,350 square feet. So we're looking to build exactly the same thing. And we're requiring the same asking for the same relief. Basically, you can see if we didn't get the relief on the milk lane side, it wouldn't allow us to build anything over probably 5.5 meters wide. That would take us down to 18 feet. So by allowing the minor variance, we can build 2 units of equal size, about approximately 28 feet wide or 8.56 meters wide. So we feel that in doing this build, we can it supports the current needs and future needs of housing in Saugeen Shores, as well as lower cost housing, being the fact that they are semis and not single residential homes. Any questions for me from the committee?
Vice Deputy Mayor Myatt.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll be certainly supporting this recommendation. And Brian, I think this and committee, I think this is a classic example of infilling and meaning our 10% intensification policy. And I just think this is good planning, and so I'll be supporting. I just wondering, Brian, the units. It's good to see these kinds of units built in Saugeen Shore, a little smaller. What kind of square footage are you looking at, Brian, for these homes?
Anywhere from, each unit would be anywhere from 1,305 to approximately 1,700. So the ones that we built on Hilker are 1,305 square feet. They seem to work out well. They're
Sure.
Yeah.
And there's a real need for that size,
Yeah.
And I think this is a good, very, very good application, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Matheson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. Brian, thanks for your application here. I remember your previous application further down the street. And as the Vice Deputy Mayor said, this is a good use of the land. It's infill. We're putting 2 residences in the place of 1 at something that we do need in Saugeen Shore. So I will be supporting this motion as well.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Matheson. Do any committee members have final questions before we close the public meeting and discuss this application? I now declare the public meeting closed. Are there any comments from the committee on this application? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve this application subject to the conditions on the decision sheet? Moved by Vice Deputy Mayor Myatt, seconded by Ms. Kuntz. Any questions or discussions? Seeing none, all in favor? I declare the motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Burton, for attending.
Thank you, committee and Barbara.
Our next item is item number 5.2. This is a minor variance application A-2022-009. Jeff Carver, this is for lot 6 at 656 Goddard Street in the former town of Port Elgin. First, we will receive a report from the planning staff. Then committee members will have an opportunity to ask questions, and I will ask them to reserve their comments on the application until we have heard from the public. Then we will hear from any members of the public. Members of the public are advised that the ability to appeal the decision on this application may be limited if you have not provided comments on the application before this decision is made. After we have heard from the public, the committee will discuss and consider a recommendation on this application. I now ask Ms. Mugabe to carry on with her presentation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair O'Connor. I'll just load up the presentation. So this is a straightforward application. It's really to facilitate a land transaction. The subject land is 656 Godrich Street, which is on the west side of Godrich Street. The commercial block is bounded by Green Street to the south and Mill Street to the north. The lands are in downtown Port Elgin. Earlier this year, we processed a consent application to recreate two original lots that merged on title in the 1970s. The lots are occupied by an existing commercial building that's divided at the party wall. The subject lands to this minor variance application were the severed lands for that consent application. They were severed from 662 Godrich Street, which is their abutting property on the north side. The existing building on the subject lands is occupied by a commercial space at ground level. And then there's one apartment above and also a second short-term rental apartment. So on this slide, we're showing the front view of the building, and Huron shows optometry is on the ground level. The residential apartments are above. This slide shows the rear of the site and the building. The rear setback for the existing building does not meet the minimum requirements of the zoning bylaw. When we processed the consent application, there was no requirement for a minor variance application. We were consistent in how we have been dealing with consent applications where there are zoning deficiencies on already developed sites that are involved in the consent process. The standard practice is that where the deficiency is an existing situation and is not a result of the consent and has no significant impact to the consent, we generally have not been asking for minor variance applications. The applicant's lawyer has filed this subject minor variance application nonetheless, and it's really just to facilitate the property exchanging hands. In terms of surrounding land uses, there are commercial, retail, and residential uses. Servicing is municipal water and sewers, and the access is the Godrich Street, which is a year-round municipal road. The purpose of this application is to reduce the rear yard depth from 6 meters to 1.8 meters. And as I said, approval of the application will facilitate a land transaction. In terms of additional information from a land use perspective, this site is designated primary urban communities in the Bruce County official plan. The local designation is core commercial and community improvement. The zoning is commercial core special, CC-2. We circulated the application to the departments and agencies. There are no adverse comments. We have not received any comments from members of the public. I will now speak to the 4 tests of a minor variance. In regards to test number 1, the county official plan permits residential and commercial uses on the subject land, and the core commercial designation of the local official plan permits commercial land uses and residential apartments above or behind the commercial buildings. This proposal maintains the intent and purposes of the official plans. With respect to test number 2, the rear yard deficiency is a long-standing situation on the ground, and approval of this application would merely acknowledge this existing site characteristic. The variance will not create new or additional impact. There are no other zoning issues with this site. The variance maintains the intent and purposes of the zoning bylaw. With respect to test number 3, is the variance requested desirable for the appropriate and orderly development and use of the land and buildings? Approval of this variance, again, is really just to facilitate the land exchanging hands. There are no changes proposed to the uses that are currently within this building. These uses are desirable within the downtown core area and will be maintained. The variance represents an appropriate form of development for the use of the land. The last of the 4 tests is the variance minor in nature. What is the impact to surrounding property owners, to the environment, and to municipal functions? The owner is retaining the existing rear yard depth, and as such, there is no new impact to the immediate surroundings. Permitting the variance will not change the character of the area or the ability of abutting property owners to use their properties for permitted uses. There is no impact to municipal services, as this application does not involve new development or additional uses within the existing building. There are also no environmental features on this site. This variance is minor. So as a summary, this application is seeking to reduce the rear yard depth from 6 meters to 1.8 meters. Approval of the requested variance will facilitate a land transaction. This proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement. It upholds the objectives of the official plans and generally meets the intent and purposes of the zoning bylaw. The proposal satisfies the 4 tests of a minor variance. Planning staff is recommending approval of this application subject to the conditions on the decision sheet. That concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to take questions if there are any.
Thank you, Ms. Mugabe, for the report. Are there any questions for the planner from the members of the committee? If not, we will now hear from the members of the public. Mr. Carver, do you wish to address the committee?
No, just to say thank you for taking the time to consider the application. I think it's probably one of the more minor ones you folks get on the desk. So if there's no questions for me, I'm content with Barbara's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carver. Do any committee members have final questions before we close the public meeting and discuss this application? Seeing none, I now declare the public meeting closed. Are there any committee comments from the committee on this application? Vice Deputy Mayor Myatt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I'll be supporting. I think this is a good application, and I had the opportunity, not long ago to have a tour of the renovated building upstairs that Mr. Carver's worked on so hard, and all the good things he's doing with housing around the community. I think this application is again solid, and I know the property, and I'll be supporting.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve this application subject to the conditions on the decision sheet? Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Ms. Barwell. Any questions, comments on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? I declare the motion carried. Thank you, everybody. Sorry, I'm missing a page. Our next meeting. All right. I just lost my agenda. I don't know where it went. When's our our next meeting will be 1 month hence, I believe. Here.
Yeah, I think if I may, Mr. Chair, it's June 16, I believe, or that's today. So it's June 20th.
June the 20th. Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn, please? Moved by the Deputy Mayor Matheson, seconded by Ms. Barwell. All in favor? I declare it carried. Thank you.